Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Lifestyle CEO Show. I'm your host, Donna Maria, the original Lifestyle CEO, and you have arrived at the place on your internet dial, the only place where we empower you to break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love. Today's show is sponsored by the Handmade Beauty Network and our feature member of the week, Deal Farm Soap Company, where you can get lots of great handmade soaps and other products made with fresh goat's milk to help take even better care of your skin. For more information, visit handmadebeauty.com or dealfarm.com. And Renee up at Deal Farm Soap will be really happy to take care of you. Today's show is all about packaging your products. Of course, you can't have a product without a package. And who better to talk about how to best package your products than Joann Hines, who calls herself the Packaging Diva. And we have got her on our show today to share her expertise, some tips, some tricks, and also some trends in the packaging arena. And Joann has decades of experience in this industry, and she's fresh from speaking about it at a conference on the West Coast. Welcome to the show, Joann.
Hi, Donna Maria. Thanks, and I'm glad to be able to speak to your audience and educate them about packaging, which actually happens to be the third largest industry in the United States. But no one ever thinks about it. They just take it for granted. And as you mentioned, it's an integral part of getting a product from the manufacturer to the store, but also, plain and simply, you can't have a product without a package.
Yeah, and obviously everyone knows that. If anybody's manufacturing or putting anything on a shelf, it has to be contained in something. But let's talk about that, Joann, because while most small businesses, and of course lifestyle CEOs being people who mainly start their businesses from a passion, of course we all understand that we have to have a package. But a lot of times, once we have perfected the actual product, we kind of go, phew, okay, done with that. Now let's just slap a label on it and see if we can sell it. So can you share a little bit about, what types of, well, first of all, how did you get into this industry? I understand you're one of the first women to actually be a leader in the packaging industry. Tell me a little bit how you got involved in that.
Well, actually, I made a career change a number of years ago, and I researched other industries and came across the packaging industry and found out that it was a very dynamic and exciting industry to be in, because every product is different, so you're never doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I didn't know was that I was about to be the only woman, or one of the few women that were in the industry, back when I first started my career in 1976. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I founded an organization for women in the packaging industry because there was such a need for outreach and support with other women in business. And that was the goal of the organization, to basically be there for other women who were in the industry who wanted to build their personal brands and to reach out with other women.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in terms of packaging, Joann, when you've got a product, let's just say you have perfected the product and you are ready to get going, what are some of the first things that you should consider? It just in general, and I know there'll be some variations, obviously, depending on the product itself and what it's suitable to be packaged in. But generally speaking, in your experience, what are some of the first things you should consider when you're looking at what kind of package to get?
Well, I think the first and most important thing, and the question I get asked more than anything, is how to find a supplier, especially when you're starting out with small quantities or you really know nothing about the packaging industry. How do you actually find someone who can provide the packaging materials for your product? Mm-hmm. And most manufacturers want very large volume and very high order quantities in order to process, so it's kind of a difficult situation for people who are just starting up or who may be refining the concept or who ultimately may move into bigger quantities, that they can't find someone that wants to do business with them.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do? I mean, I know you can do internet research, but I'm guessing maybe that you can, do word of mouth and find out from people that you network with. But what does somebody in that position do, especially, when you're on a shoestring budget and you can't afford to deliver that kind of volume? What do you suggest that someone like that do first?
Well, the first thing that I suggest them to do, and this has been a boon for many small businesses, was I created a request for proposal place on several of my websites where we literally post your request, your packaging needs or problems free of charge, and that enables people to search the Internet who are looking for companies to sell their products to see who needs some help. And it's been wildly successful because we get people telling us all the time that they had their packaging solutions solved by posting the RFP. That's a free service that we offer. And after that, then the best tool is to start really checking with the various associations in your industry that relate to packaging. There's so many different associations in the packaging industry that I also have collated those on the Women in Packaging website where you can just go and look up if it's flexible packaging or paperboard packaging and click immediately to the industry association. And each industry association will have a list like you do with the Handmade Toiletry Network, Donna, Maria, the companies that are involved in the organization, and they can provide help for someone who's looking for a supplier.
Okay, that's great. So womeninpackaging.org, right?
Yes, and then click on the links page.
Okay, great. Well, there's definitely a whole host of information there. And so even before you get to that point, Joann, you obviously look at your product and you consider the type of material, maybe the cost. Obviously, plastic costs less to ship than glass. So what are some of those other kinds of practical considerations that you need to think about when you actually send out an RFP or start contacting a supplier? And the first thing they're going to say is, okay, well, what do you need? So,
well, that's a difficult question to answer because right now there's a big issue revolving around whether the best material is plastic or the best material is paper. And there's so much going on in the arena of the plastic side, which in very few cases, most people are starting out with plastics, and then ultimately, as the quantity goes up, they may venture into customized glass bottles or jars. To determine, which your product, based upon the products you're making, for example, if it's an environmentally friendly product or a natural product or an organic product, you might want to consider using environmentally friendly materials. And that's where the big issue is right now, because everybody's sort of getting aware to the greening of the environment and environmental issues, that they need to know that there are two basically plastic-type materials available for package, one of which is an oil-based or petroleum-based product, and then the latest and greatest to arrive on the scene is the bioresins or bio-based plastic materials, which are basically made out of a degradable cornstarch material.
Wow. And is one less expensive than the other?
Well, it used to be that the biomaterials were more expensive, but now with the price of petroleum increasing, from everything that I can determine is they're essentially comparable in price of materials now, so you're only limited by the imagination and by the suppliers that are willing to develop these new bioresin packaging. It's sort of in its infancy, so you really have to be careful when you investigate that avenue, because it's only become very hot on the scene since the fall when Walmart placed a big order for biodegradable plastic packaging, which kind of drove the whole initiative forward.
Wow. So what about color? How does color fit into the issue of, the environmentally friendly and degradable packaging?
Well, color is important in the fact that you have to understand who your target audience is, and that's the other big issue, that you've got a great product, okay, but it's not going to be able to be marketed to everybody. You need to understand who your target audience or your target demographics will be for your product. And there are certain environmental considerations as well as color considerations for packaging. For example, people think that if it's for a woman, they should make it pink, and that's totally untrue.
Let's talk about that a little bit in terms of color. Pink, I'm thinking about, the breast cancer ribbons and the T-shirts and everything. It just seems to be so indelibly associated with womanhood. What other colors do you suggest that people consider when that is their demographic?
Well, actually, I did some research on this for my program at the Marketing to Women conference to package products she will buy. And basically, it turned out that the number one color preferred in product packaging by women was red, followed closely by blue. And pink was very far down the list. Now,
really?
It was surprising, but people think that pink, and again, with the breast cancer, that is a good association. But it's not necessarily an association for a woman who, has, like you said, some lifestyle CEOs who've come up in the world and they are their own person. They don't necessarily make a connection with pink as being a womanly color.
So it's really fascinating that you say that. There's so many different types of products and services that do revolve around that color. It's interesting. I wonder how many of them could benefit from a change in color that they may not even know about just because they haven't really done any research or read any research, maybe things that you've written. They've just sort of picked pink. That's just really interesting. We're going to come back and talk about that and some other things that you should consider when you're deciding what kind of package you want. We are going to be right back in a few minutes with Joann Hines, the Packaging Diva. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Lifestyle CEO Show. I'm Donna Maria, your host, and we are talking today with Joann Hines, the Packaging Diva herself. And if you have a product that you have created, that you have manufactured, and you think it does a really good job of representing what you want it to represent as a product made by your company, and if you're really proud of it, you want to package it in a way that is going to make it look its best. And who better to help you do that than the Packaging Diva? And we are here with her today getting the benefit of her experience. Joann, what would you say to someone who has created a product? Most of the listeners to this show actually have invented something, or they're the manufacturers of a product, and it's a wonderful product, and then they have to kind of say, okay, it's a great product, but how do I make it look its best? And how do I understand that the product may be great, but, I got to go the extra mile to convince people to part with their money over it? What do you say to people?
Well, actually, you've raised a very interesting point, because it's surprising how many people think once they have a great product that means it's naturally going to sell. Mm-hmm. And that is not true, because the first thing you have to do is to convince someone to pick up your product. Mm-hmm. They have to actually either pick it off the shelf or look at it and say, I need to know more. there needs to be a connection between the product and the ultimate consumer or the person who's actually purchasing the product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the role that packaging plays. Mm-hmm. Packaging has to inform the consumer or the buyer what's actually inside, and then more importantly, it has to tell them, what is this product going to do for me? A benefits-driven information on the outside of the package so that people say, I need to know more, and give it a further investigation.
Right. Pick it up off the shelf and maybe even buy. I love the way you said that. I want to pause for a second and kind of just digest that and let listeners do that as well. Packaging does a couple things. It informs. And I remember once, Joann, I received a bar of handmade soap that was just, I can't remember the shape it was in, but the label said fudge brownie. It did not say soap.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I remember, of course, I'm the president of the Handmade Beauty Network. I knew what it was. But I wondered, did this person actually sell this, on a shelf or at a craft show or something just like this? Because it didn't inform me about what it was.
Nor did it tell you, what benefits you would derive from by using this soap, which is the really important part, is that if someone would purchase your product, and here's a few statistics that you might be interested in. First of all, the average purchasing decision is made 70% of the time in the retail environment, and in only 2.6 seconds. So that's 2.6 seconds of sensory overload of information that someone's trying to digest when they're looking at a product or they're in a store and trying to make a decision as to what package they're going to pick up or what product they're going to buy. So that leaves a very, very narrow window of convincing someone to purchase your product and to pick your package up off the shelf.
2.6 seconds. So you have got to use that label to inform. And also, Joann, do you also need to be concerned about creating an emotional connection in the mind of the person that's looking at that product package?
Absolutely, because the more you can connect, and on the more levels, whether it's on a subtle level or an overt level where the package is screaming out, buy me, buy me, the more levels of connection, the more of a chance you're going to have someone to decide to pick up the product and ultimately purchase it.
And now what would you say to someone whose business is mainly on the Internet and their opportunity to show their product doesn't allow for actually picking it up and handling it? What sorts of things do they consider in terms of choosing packaging if their business is, say 90 or even 100% online?
The benefits-driven statements, which are the most important. What is this product going to do for me? The satisfaction I will get or derive from using this product, or the feeling of wellness, or it could be unlimited in terms of what the product's going to do. The important thing is to make it in a term that express it in a term, and I'll use an example here, that shows clearly stated benefits. And even though probably people in the Handmade Toiletry Network and some of the people listening to this show may not have products that have technical information, I'm going to use this illustration.
Okay.
For example, if you had a product, and it was, in this case, it was a mixer, and the product said, serves 56 ounces. Well, people were saying, okay, 56 ounces, how many ounces in a cup, how many ounces in a quart, and so on. And nobody really remembers their cups and measures. So if instead you would say, this product serves 6 to 8. That is immediately quantifiable in terms of a benefits-driven statement. They know how many people they're going to serve, and it's easy to digest that information and translate it into an actionable item.
Right. They can relate it to their home, their family.
Exactly. And here's another example. Again, this product has so many watts of power. Well, people really don't care how many watts of power the product has. They care that it can make my drink in 60 seconds or less.
Okay. So relating that to the cosmetics industry, because I know a lot of Lifestyle CEO listeners are in that industry, relating it to that industry, the fact that your lotion contains a high degree of shea butter doesn't really mean anything necessarily, because if someone doesn't know what shea butter is, that's not going to have any meaning for them.
Exactly. So then it would be, okay, this is what shea butter does for me. Makes my skin smoother, eliminates wrinkles, protects me against the sun. Any of those purely benefits-driven statements that can be correlated and assimilated very easily versus someone having to think, well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are really, really good tips. And you know what? As I'm listening to you describe those things, Joann, they seem so second nature, but it just seems so also second nature to kind of not first think about those, because especially when we are the ones who have the passion for the product because we've made it. It's like, how could you not know what shea butter is? How could you not know these types of things that are so obvious to us? And in many senses, because many lifestyle CEOs and small business owners or networking with people who are like them in the same industry, they don't necessarily have the benefit of the outside experience. Everybody knows what shea butter is, so why do I need to explain it?
Yeah, that raises a very good point, because you become so inwardly focused. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I always tell people is you've got to take yourself at a distance and think like the consumer. Think like the person who's actually purchasing the product, not the person that's inventing the product or the person that has created or even manufacturing the product. You have to think about, here I am, overworked, time crunched, overstressed, running to the store or shopping on the Internet, making a decision in a hurry and need to be informed and educated in a very brief moment. So how can I make my package have those compelling statements that say, buy me, I need this, it's going to make me happy, it's going to make me fulfilled, it's going to make me look better, whatever the ultimate goal would be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Joann, how do you think about going back a little bit to the environmental issue and how overwhelmingly important it is for an increasing number of consumers to have products that are eco-friendly or bio-friendly, maybe even organic? How do you, in your experience, assimilate that desire with their seemingly continued desire for things like color?
Well, it was really interesting because we're what I consider the third environmental wave. Environmental awareness becomes hot in the American populace. About every 5 to 6 years, we become conscious, and usually there's something driving the environmental awareness, the greenhouse gases, and all of the things that are driving it right now. Global warming are kind of spurring environmental awareness in other areas. So the thing of it is to understand, if in fact you are going to move in the environmental mode, then you clearly need to brand that environmental aspect all the way through your product, through your packaging, through your benefits-driven statements, and so on. You can't be, this product is environmentally friendly and then go out and, buy some environmentally unfriendly packaging material and expect people to make the connection.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you're such an expert in this area, and my visibility is fairly limited, but one of the things that I have noticed is, just in talking to people, that there is this articulated desire for eco-friendly and bio-friendly and, no petroleum products or whatever, but at the same time, people seem to continue to want some of the benefits associated with the things that they don't want in the package. So, for example, they may want to see a recycle label on the package, or maybe that it's made, out of a bio-friendly ingredient, but the actual product itself, perhaps they don't really, sometimes they want some of the benefits that are not available with something that's eco-friendly. For example, a racing pink color, which may not be natural. Or, a fragrance, for example, that may have been synthetically created that they really have a love for. So it seems like consumers are continuing to, kind of want both. They want a little bit of both.
Well, and there are always trade-offs. It used to be that if you used environmentally friendly packaging materials, you used to have to pay a premium. Now those costs are coming closer to the cost of the other materials, so it may open up some options for people to explore the environmentally friendly materials. But there's still not the choice and the variety in the environmental packaging materials. I mean, this is just in its infancy, particularly in the realm of the plastics materials in terms of products that are being made from the bioresins or biomaterials. This is a very, very young industry, so I would caution somebody to go out and get on that environmental bandwagon until they've fully done their research and explored, the packaging materials itself, and really to find out whether their consumer, their ultimate purchaser, even cares. If they want red, pink stripe, bright pink, they may not care what the product is made of as long as they're getting the color that they desire.
So making sure that your packaging sort of dovetails and fits in with the overall image that you've created with your company is also really important.
Exactly, and that is not an easy thing to do because it takes a great deal of time and effort to brand an environmental campaign, including package through all channels of the marketing and development of a product, and in many cases, many dollars, too. So it's not, environmentally friendly is not the inexpensive solution, which most people think, if I use recycled packaging materials, it's going to be less. Well, that's not true. It's probably going to be more and not nearly as available as virgin materials.
Oh, yeah, and that can be deadly, too, when you run out of something you really need. We're going to take our second break, Joann. I want to remind everyone that they can call their questions or comments into you live when we come back from our break. And the telephone number to use is 800. I can't get that telephone number right now. We'll be right back. We're going to take our break. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning their new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show, everyone. The telephone number to call your question or comment into the Packaging Diva is 800-773-0355. And we've got the Packaging Diva right here, and we've been talking about all kinds of issues that need to be considered when you're deciding what kind of packaging you want to get to package your products. And Joann, you said in our last segment that packaging should inform and also describe the benefits of the products. And we've been talking quite a bit this afternoon about environmentally friendly packaging. And you said that we are in what you describe as the third environmental wave. Can you describe a little bit more about what that is and what it means in terms of packaging choices for people who are looking for eco-friendly or green packaging?
Well, basically, the environmental wave means that people are aware of environmental issues. It becomes a hot button or something that shows up on their radar scope that they might look at the package to see is it a bioresin, or can it be degraded, or can it be recycled or reused. And we're coincidentally very close to the Earth Day, which was in April this year, which is an annual event, and several fairly large companies decided to kick off environmental awareness campaigns. So that always brings the awareness factor up, and generally when some of the big boys start playing in the environmental arena. But the American public is very fickle and also very conscious of paying a premium for environmental products. So there comes a point where they will only pay so much of a premium for a product. For example, they might pay 5 cents, but they won't pay 25 cents for environmentally friendly materials.
Is it important for people who use that kind of packaging to also relate that kind of benefit to their customer? In other words, if there is a 5-cent premium, does the package itself need to be able to, describe the benefits in that respect?
Well, it needs to be able to tell, for example, this material. And to use an example, one of the big overstatements people see all the time is about there's so much waste of packaging materials and landfills. Well, I was just at a conference last week where I was speaking as the keynote, and in one of the other presentations asked the people to raise their hand how much packaging material they thought were in landfills, and I would say 75% of the people said between 70 and 80%, and it actually turned out to be only 30%. So that's one of those great, numbers that people think that's really not true. So, if people are saying environmentally friendly materials, then they need to determine or demonstrate why this is important to the consumer, whether it can be reused, recycled. The other thing that we didn't talk about is outside the U.S., many of these European countries in particular and Australia are now having packaging mandates and legislation that are saying you can only have so much material in your packaging product that is virgin, or it has to be recycled by such and such a percent, or so on. So as people, we become a more global environment and products have to go offshore, then those considerations have to be taken into when people are making products here in the United States.
So if you have to look at what some of those requirements are in countries where you ship your products to, or else they may not ever get there. They get stopped at the border.
Exactly. And many of those mandates, particularly in countries like Germany and Australia, are very stringent and becoming tighter all the time. There is, in fact, a big European mandate called REACH that's coming up that's going to legislate the amount of so-called recycled materials, how much can be, what it can be made of. It's not official yet, but there's a great deal of interest in what's going on in that arena, which drives what happens here in the United States on every packaging product.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I know you have a lot of experience in so many different areas, and your expertise is really great because it spans not just packaging, but because you've dealt with packaging for a variety of different types of companies, you have expertise in several different industries that manufacture products that use packaging. So what have you noticed, Joann, are some of the most important things to be concerned about in terms of branding when you're choosing your packaging material?
Well, when choosing your packaging material, there's a couple ways to go about it. For example, we all recognize brands, package material brands such as the Coca-Cola bottle. What's important about that is that it's the shape that we recognize.
Yes.
Not necessarily that it's the Coke itself, but the shape of the bottle, which is a branded trademark, is what we identify with. And Coke has continued that shaped bottle no matter whether it was glass or whether it was plastic or even their sculpted cans. They've continued to take that branded shape throughout the entire package.
So one of the things you're talking about there is consistency, almost to the point of just, redundancy.
Exactly, because once you've established that brand awareness, you want people to be able to recognize it wherever they go and be able to relate a good experience with having purchased that brand. Another example that I use, it's fairly old, and maybe some of your audience isn't old enough to remember, but the legs pantyhose that considered to be one of the best branding packaging examples ever was when they came into the plastic egg, the two-part egg.
Yes, yes.
Which, is actually touted to be one of the best examples of building a packaging brand ever to come on the marketplace. But for years, as long as that brand was around, you saw a plastic egg. No matter where it was used in the secondary market, you knew immediately what it was and what product had come in that package.
That's such a fascinating point that you make. You could be standing in a women's hosiery department surrounded by pantyhose manufactured by 50 or 100 different companies, and you would be able to pick that one out.
Exactly, and that's where the role of the package as a brand clearly differentiated itself from any other product on the market. And if you think about it, there's lots of examples of that. They're subliminal messages, so you never pick out the fact that the package is the brand itself.
So you're sharing that in addition to cost and color and material, such as, glass versus plastic versus paper, that the design of things like your logo and the font that you use on your packages also plays an intricate role.
Exactly. They need to correlate with the image that you're trying to create with your ultimate consumer, ultimate buyer. So if you're selling to men, you wouldn't want frilly script and fancy lettering and, of course, a color or shape that was undeniably non-masculine. So, you need to think about all those things when you look at your target audience, and that's where it's really important to understand who your target audience is when you're developing a package, and then make sure that your package reaches out to them with those attributes.
Great. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about that and explore that question of creating the kind of package that dovetails with the message and the brand that you want to communicate to your customer. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. We are talking this afternoon with Joann Hines, the Packaging Diva and the president of Women in Packaging at womeninpackaging.org on the Internet, and also the dean of the Packaging University. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. This is the Lifestyle CEO Show. You can call your question or comment in to Joann at 800-773-0355. We'll be right back.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO Show, everyone. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and we are talking to the Packaging Diva about selecting and coordinating and creating packaging that reflects the proper brand, the brand that you want your consumers to be attracted to when they pick up your package. Joann, talk a little bit, if you would, about the association between the package and overall branding, which is just so critical for the growth of any product line.
Well, the important part about the brand is to have continuity with all the products.
Okay, continuity.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have, a bunch of different labels and a bunch of different colors and a bunch of different packages if you're trying to build brand equity with the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
They need to clearly look at one package and to be able to correlate that this product can match up with other products in a line of products if you want to sell more than one item to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important in the retail environment to have a uniformity so that you're building basically a palette of your products, either visually with color or visually with the message that you are sending back to the consumer. Because if you have different shapes, different colors, different labels, then you're really sending a confusing message to the consumer if these are even in the same family of products.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great point. I know I have over the years watched one particular cosmetics product line grow from its infancy to a pretty good deal of success now. And she was on a very small budget when she started her business, and so her labels were basically her product, her company name in lowercase, a font that she liked in all lowercase, the name of the product, and a little bit of marketing, a blurb about the benefits of it, and a square around it. Like a graphic square, just around that information. And the great thing about it is, Joann, it wasn't expensive and it wasn't fancy, but she's continued it like for 8 straight years. And so now, from across a crowded shelf of products, I can pick hers out.
And you raised a good point, Donna Maria, that the simplicity of the package and the message is really, really important because, like I said earlier, you've got 2.6 seconds to make a decision, but you're also in a state of sensory overload. So you've got to make the message clear and succinct and immediately recognizable, and don't put information that's not really important or relevant to the purchasing decision on the outside of the package. Relegate that to somewhere where it's not up front and center, so that you can keep that message continuous throughout whatever product, and hopefully so that someone can immediately recognize it through the simplicity of a logo or the simplicity of a color or the simplicity of a brand statement.
Mm-hmm. Now, Joann, does that concept apply not just to the packaging that is actually enclosing the product that you're considering buying or that you're handling off the shelf, but also onto your brochures and your website and your business card and everything else that's out there trying to create coordination for you? Would you say that it's more than just the package on the actual product?
Absolutely. Everything should remain the same. The message that you're creating in your literature and in your sales collateral materials and stuff should be reflected on your packaging and vice versa. You need to have the continuity of the message remain the same. And one thing I want to mention here is I see a lot of packages where people have a whole lot of different fonts on their products. This font, they like this font, and then they like that font, and then they like the other font. And all of a sudden it just becomes a whole mishmash of information that, is not easily assimilated and very confusing. So stick with one font and stick with one simple statement and carry that message throughout every one of your products and your information that you're conveying in your collateral materials and your POP materials, or even in the booklets that you include in your products.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think a lot of people may try to choose an unusual font simply because it is unusual. It kind of makes them stand out. But you're saying that can actually backfire because if people can't read it, you stand out, but you don't stand out in a positive way.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The thing about the font is, we all like these really squirrely-looking fonts and flourishes, and women in particular, they like that look. But that's really, really difficult for people to see. And you raise a really good point, because there's one thing that you also need to not overlook is that as our population grows older, eyesight is one of the most important things for us to think about reading the package, the size of the font. As the population continues to grow older, there is a big issue around actually being able to read the package. So if you're marketing to the 50-plus generation, large type better be an important part of your package itself.
Yeah, it's so funny because I used to work in the telephone industry, and whenever there was an area code change, like they would have an area code split where they would run out of telephone numbers in one area code, and it was the generation, the baby boomers, the members of AARP who would be the most upset because, there was a visual, sort of a tangible lifetime connection with that particular area code, and so seeing different numbers just totally threw them off.
And, the other thing is really important to be recognized is that if you're marketing to a population over 50, the ease of use, the ease of opening, the manual dexterity, to be able to get into the package itself. I just got contacted by AARP last week about a whole group of product packaging that they're trying to put together, and their main concern is how can we make this product easy to open and easy to use. So that's really an important consideration, particularly if you're marketing to the 50-plus generation.
Oh, and I have to say, as a mother of young children in my 40s, the packages that the toys come in, I mean, you practically need a crowbar. Some of them. I mean, I guess there's a reason for that, because sometimes there's things you don't want your kids to, or you know, obviously if you're in a toy store, you don't want packaging that children can pick up and drop on the floor and the whole thing falls apart. But at the same time, it's kind of like, have some mercy here.
That's one of the things that I've gotten written about more than anything about. I hate packaging emails, which people say, you know, why does Barbie have 1,000 twists, and why can't I get into my clamshell? And the reason behind that, though, is the fact that the consumer issues for product security, being tampered with, being contaminated, counterfeiting, all of those things, and also including, unfortunately, retail theft, is driving the reason why those packages are so difficult to get into.
It's a shame that, you know, those of us who are just trying to, you know, do whatever we need to do to raise our families or whatever kind of have to pay for that. But that's important, going back to your point about creating packaging and using, with the resources that you have, making it paramount to create something that's uniform and has some continuity.
Uniform and have continuity and an easily recognizable brand, something that literally jumps out. And one of the things I want to mention is there are so many new vehicles available now in the packaging industry. I've written a couple articles recently. Does your packaging smell or talk or change color? That literally is available for you in the terms of applications that are new, innovative applications that are available in the packaging industry. And for the cosmetic people who are involved in the Handmade Toiletry Network, there are actually packages right now that can smell, can impart the fragrance of whatever product is inside, that you can smell the cap or the lid without ever opening the product itself. It's a huge wave of new packaging materials that are available that really give you an added edge, because you can say your product is still secure because people don't have to open it and stick their finger into it or smell it or take off the lid to find out what's inside, because they can actually smell the package itself and know what the fragrance is going to be.
Yeah, the new twist on scratch and sniff. And, you know, you're probably also familiar with the technology that's being developed to allow people to click on a link on a website and have some kind of apparatus attached to their PC or their computer that actually emanates that aroma.
Yeah, it's all being driven by that scent technology. There's so many new innovations that are coming out in that market that literally you can't keep up with them. But I think the important one, especially for the small business person and, you know, who's not able to purchase in large quantities, would be to look for that sensory package lid, the technology that they can actually incorporate essence of their product into the lid of the package. This is in the lid itself. It's not scratch and sniff. It's actually the lid smells like the product that's inside.
Well, isn't there also, Joann, I thought I had seen somewhere like a round, a tab, like maybe the size of a quarter, that you can actually lift?
Yes, that's been around for a while. That technology has been around, the label where you lift it up and there's the essence. But this is where...
That's expensive than actually having the lid itself infused with the aroma?
It would depend, again, like I said, if they make a say, for example, coffee, if any of your people are making coffee, or vanilla, let's use that because that's more beauty product friendly. You know, if enough people are demanding lids made that smell like vanilla, then it will be readily available. Right now it's still pretty much custom, but it's growing so fast that I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the bottle and jar distributors that basically are the mainstay of the small business person start to carry some of these new, what I call smelly products, smelly packages.
Will they be able to actually take a sample of your fragrance blend? In other words, there's, vanilla can smell a million different ways depending on where you get your vanilla from. So will they be able to create, you send them, an ounce or something or however much they need of your actual blend and incorporate that, or is it kind of like there's one vanilla fits all?
No, they can actually replicate any scent, the exact scent.
Okay. Oh, they replicate. Okay.
Yeah, so they make the plastic material that incorporates that, scent into the package itself, but it's the exact scent that you send them. It's not just a generic scent. Right.
That is so fascinating. Well, of course, for all of the listeners who are manufacturing products in the cosmetics industry, that is really super news. And the fact that it's become more readily available is even better news, because that means that whatever it costs today, it will go down.
Exactly. As it becomes more commonplace. And don't forget, everybody's using whatever edge they can, whether it's a smelly package or a package that talks, to get the consumer's attention. It's a huge and growing marketplace, and will become even more prominent as people are, more and more people are using scent as a way to sell products.
Right. Well, Joann, thank you so much for all of the helpful information that you have provided today. I want to remind listeners that you can learn more about Joann by visiting several of her websites. I'm going to name two here, and there are other ones, and you can get to them from these links. Women in Packaging is the organization that Joann has formed to provide services to companies that are interested and need packaging. That's womeninpackaging.org. And there's also a great deal of educational information there, as well as at her website, packaginguniversity.com. Thank you so much for joining us, Joann, and I want you guys to make sure you go visit there. Take advantage of some of the free links and the free search resources that she has at her website. And for those of you who are members of the Handmade Beauty Network or who have small businesses, I want to encourage you to visit handmadebeauty.com and take a look at all the information we have there about our upcoming conference, our one-day intensive business growth conference on July 15th, 2006, in Secaucus, New Jersey. We are going to cover in one day what I call the 4 core things that you need to be successful in business. And one of them does have to do, well, actually a couple of them have to do with packaging your products and packaging yourself to sell. I invite you to take a look there, and also visit lifestyleceo.com when you get a chance, and enjoy all of the shows that we have here that we've brought you experts to help you grow your business. I'll be back next week with Rachel Heyman, the author of Bye Bye Boardroom, Confessions from a New Breed of Stay-at-Home Moms. That's going to be really exciting. Everybody out there that's a woman, this is National Women's Health Week. Visit womenshealth.gov for more information about how you can take better care of your health. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, break all the rules, build your own corporate ladder, and create the life you love.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.